So you have, as a board, received documentation several weeks ago in regards to the petition for the map amendment, rezoning Nelson Family Enterprises LLC. The 7 parcels that commonly known as 313 Bell Street, Madairyville, Indiana. Some additional documentation that is included as required by Pulaski County ordinance has been satisfied by Nelson Family Enterprises with the finding of facts, site maps, letter of intent, deeds, soil studies. See, we've got a topo map. You have your drainage agreement, which has been reviewed throughout the county and town of Madairyville also. So based on Pulaski County ordinance, all documents have been submitted appropriately. In regards to notices that had been mailed as required via the rules of procedure and the Pulaski County ordinance, the Building and Zoning Office has received several calls. I feel, based on the calls that we've received, probably guesstimate 99% satisfactory calls. Some people had questions in regards to, just as we typically get calls, they aren't certain what the notice meant. So they wanted that information clarified. Otherwise, everything has satisfied the requirement for ordinance for application for rezoning. So the request is for the rezoning so they can satisfactorily place the Frito-Lay facilities. And it's, for the most part, would you want to come forward and share more information with the board? If you, sure.
Good evening. Hello, everybody. I'm Tom with Nelson Engineering, Nelson Family, and Nelson Industrial Construction. So we build a lot of buildings. Our primary is Tyson, Premium Port, big buildings. And my division, we head up distributions of food products, which is what we're here about tonight. So this will be about a 6,000 square foot building, capable of 20% growth. And I believe you all have these drawings in front of you. So I've looked at them, shared them with Carla, and I'm pretty excited about getting started. So we will have route trucks there. There will be semi trucks that'll come in early morning. They'll be gone before sunrise. Excuse me. And then everything will be distributed from there. So it's dry food products. We don't anticipate any problems in our area or in that neighborhood. We will have probably, I think, 6 or 8 guys starting right away. And my goal is to have this building operational by the middle of September. So.
You said 6 to 8. Will that be full-time employment, or will does that include on-site and truck driving?
That is full-time on-site, and then there'll be a site manager there as well. And we, Nelson Family Enterprises, will own and maintain the building and the grounds. And so we'll be involved in the community. I think I've already started with a few of the community members over there. So yeah, I'm excited about getting this one going.
Does anybody on the board have any questions?
I have a comment. I went to the town board meeting, the last town board meeting, and I asked the town board, the only reason I went was ask them. and all three of them were in favor of it, project. Went one other time and Tom was there to explain to the town, and it seems like it's taking an old junky lot and put in a new building. I'll make a motion to approve it as presented.
I'll second it.
Before we make a motion, let's open to public comment.
Now, I don't have a bullseye on my back, so I'm gonna have to turn around.
Do we have any public comment regarding the Frito-Lay Distribution Center in Madairyville? Okay, I'll motion to close comment.
Close comment?
No.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, motion is approved.
Okay. Thank you, and, I don't know if you've seen pictures of this building, but it'll fit in nicely. It'll be a good addition. Thank you.
Agree, it'll be a good addition and better than what's currently there.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to old business. This is discussion only, potential hearing date and general information of continuation of special session hearing from March 16th of 2022.
So as a board, you have an opportunity now to discuss any additional questions and concerns that you may have. If you feel that you'd like to coordinate information with one another that you haven't had an opportunity to, or if anything's come to light in discussion that you have had the last couple of weeks.
Nobody has any comments or questions. I don't know why we don't just vote on this. Fix the ordinance, makes Pulaski County competitive, and makes the ordinance clear. I think we ought to vote. Gonna vote for it, not gonna vote for it. Just vote. Just kicking the can down the road. I know these developers are ready to move on. I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast, but Holden had one this weekend. Solar's going to happen. If it's going to happen here, it's going to happen somewhere else. It's happening. I just think we should vote. I don't know if we can amend the motion to amend the agenda to vote or not.
I have several questions on the information myself.
Okay.
But I'm still digging through myself, not being here.
Well, we had a couple weeks. I don't know. What's your questions? I'm not
Todd, what are your questions?
Well, there are several things that I think that are recommended that I don't like. I think they should be left alone. And I have a list of them. Starting with 2, on page 57, 2R 1, 3, 4, 5, I think should be left alone. My copy's a little tough to read, but I think they should just be restored.
Which one? Sorry.
On page 57.
Yeah.
2R 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Why do you think they should be?
Well, we've worked so hard, not just me or us. Many people have worked a lot of hours to draw up what I thought was a pretty decent.
Yeah, I just was wondering why you chose those specific, I'm not trying to argue. I'm
Well,
just asking.
they're not the only ones. I have several in 4 and 7 also.
Do you mind sharing why you're worried about them?
Well, I didn't write anything down, to be honest.
It looks like some of them are, if you see the current one, they put them in other places. They've tried to adjust the language so that they're in other places, and so that's why I was wondering.
Okay, well, I guess I should have written it down, but I did not.
These are all this, I like went through and double checked to make sure they were in there, so that's fine.
Does anybody else think anything about those?
I don't have my copy.
What
I'm not sure.
are they? Read what 57 is. I left my copy.
And again, my copy is really hard to read. So,
Are you looking at E?
What did it say, just roughly?
well, I'm gonna have to, I took my main book out because I needed the room. So I apologize for that. I have to run out to my unredacted version.
So that's what I'm saying, are you talking about you're looking at
In the current,
the current.
and I had my other copy.
Here's the recommended in reference to that area.
Says the number 1 says number of panels. Number
2,
2 says type.
4, and 5, Mike.
4 says maximum
Done.
partial extent,
Yeah,
height and fence lines.
Yeah, and that one's in 7.14B.1. You know what I mean? There's some that they've addressed it.
This is where they put them, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I
Marked
went
out.
and looked just to see that, so I know that it's there.
Like 1 and 2 haven't been moved somewhere else where we're saying 3, 4, 5,
Yeah, I see the 1 and 2 I couldn't find, but the rest of them I did
and 6.
find. Mhm.
don't you think we should know all that information? It should be stated.
So if they told you 4 instead of 5, you would be able to go out and tell if they're, you know what I mean? I think that's something that another agency controls, right? How many panels are on each section?
I think it's more of like, obviously with setbacks and location and weight distribution and then that's all I know. So,
Gotcha.
but that wouldn't be something that we can control because I don't know how much weight those can hold up. So whoever the manufacturer would.
As far as counting them, if there's 3,000 or 4,000, the assessor's office is gonna know taxation. My idea. I think she wants to be the assessor.
I don't want to be there.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, like those couple, I understood why they looked, I mean, because it changes, I mean, everything, like technology and everything changes over time. So if we put like a number here, I'm not sure how we would be able to track that. You know what I'm saying, is things change and.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just didn't feel completely comfortable with it.
what would it take to make you feel comfortable with it?
Well, if their plan, and I think it all rolls into, and I probably should run out and get my unredacted copy so I can read it easier. But I think a site plan, everything should be complete, is what I feel. I mean, I'm not saying 1 or 2 or 4, I'm talking 1.3 million of them. You know, they're gonna have a plan, and it should be part of that plan. I'm gonna go out and get my main copy, sorry.
While he's getting his paperwork, got any talk about for the?
Only question I had was, one of the questions I had was as far as we discussed A1, A2, and possibly an exception. And I'm still confused on it. I mean, I agree with Mike that we're going. I mean, we've already said we're gonna do solar. The state's already said we're gonna do solar. I'm in agreement that I want solar, see solar. But I'm just not, when the commissioners came and said that, or the commissioner came and said that he wanted to permit the A1, A2. Personally, I wish he would have stuck around and explained to us why he wanted it that way. Because I'm still uncomfortable with that. I mean, I'm all for it, don't get me wrong, I'm for the solar, but I still think that in this instance, the community should be able to come in and say, you know, hey, here's what I'd like for you to look at, a little something different as far as, okay, you tried it over there and for whatever reason, this didn't work, portions of this didn't work. So that's my only, I would like more information on that portion of it. I'm not comfortable just giving the P to A1.
What is the difference between A1?
Acreage, basically, right?
Yeah, it's usage. A1 is general agriculture and A2 is like KFO zoning, but still A1 capabilities.
I think the commissioners want, and I think council wants, to be competitive with the area counties. I mean, we're not. I mean, White County, we're not competitive with them. Stark County, Jasper County, I don't know about both, but Jasper County's building solar, Stark County's building solar. They have whatever in White County going on, they're building solar too, but I'm not sure where it's at. But right now, we're just, you know, kick this can down the road every day here. And
Yeah, but it didn't feel like we were kicking a can. We thought that we had come to, and then all of a sudden we had this handful of changes.
I know, but we could just vote no right now.
Well, I don't know that any of us are ready to do that, Mike. I feel like we've listened to the folks give some information. We wanted to like digest it. I got to sit and research it.
Yeah.
You know, and then tonight we can find out what the worries are, and if there's a couple that we can fix to make this more palatable, you know, then
Oh, yeah.
then we fix it.
Well, I mean, I think that's fine as long as they don't take forever doing it because, you know, they're gonna go somewhere else.
Well, it's property rights, and it's not like anybody's being made, but everybody's got the right to do what they want within reason with their own property, and as long as they're not hurting the neighbor, I don't see where there's a big deal. I think it'll be a go. I think they need to take care of the drainage. I think they need to take care of the roads. I think they need to put up fence. They break something, they need to fix it. But I think it's between the landowners, the neighbors, and, we're not God. We can't dictate to everybody just on how they can run their property. It's their property right. And as far as the chemicals and stuff from it, we put on tons and tons of anhydrous, and there's not a worse chemical in the world than anhydrous. But nobody says nothing about that. So what little gases come from the solar panels, I think, very, very minimal. And the noise, there's nothing noisier than a grain dryer running all night a mile away from your house. So it's just part of a rural community. And I think we need to finally tell them something and get going with it.
Same here. And then we worry about the drainage and then we want to put trees all the way around it. Well, I don't have any land in this. I just do it because the county needs the money. I'm not having nothing to gain except my taxes will go down. They went up 14% yesterday. And, you know, you're going to tell the guy he's got to put trees around the thing or around the panels, and
It's just a place for deer to hide so they jump out in front of you, so we have more deer car accidents.
yeah, and then it plugs up the tile. Today I was talking to Jerry Gutwein, and he told me that they need to put a new tile in the Dairyville, and when it went through, Chris Schmeider put it in, and they put slotted tile. Well, guess what? There wasn't any trees back then, but now there is trees. It's all filled up. Big old 10-inch tile.
If a neighbor wants one to block a quarter of a mile each way, yeah, let the developer work it out with the neighbor. And the rest of it, let it be bare. After 6 months, you're not even going to know they're there. You'll just drive by and think it's a big lake.
But I thought we had already addressed that. I thought that was already in our video. That if the neighbor wanted,
Yeah, I think it is.
so, I mean,
Yeah.
that part to me, you know, like I tried to explain last week or whenever we were here last, when I says, well, it's already covered in a different section. We're just repeating, you know, we've got it here, we've got it here, we've got it here. So we're saying, okay, it states here, so we're gonna eliminate this here, eliminate this here because it states here, right? And I think that's what you're getting at. And that's what I was getting at last meeting was, you know, I mean, what we're trying to do is clear up the thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting back, okay, so A1, A2. Do you understand it? Do you understand it? I mean, I don't.
I do.
Okay, so
So A1 is agriculture. A2, you have to have, like, put in a pig farm. You have to be A2, dairy farm, whatever. That's like
A2 is high intensity.
I
I
Well,
understand.
this is basically, commissioners want to be able to put these solar panels on the property. If it's your property, you can put the solar panels on it. They don't want to have to, it's a permitted use, which it is a permitted use now, but you have to go through all these hoops to get a permitted use. Well, you know, if you don't, then it's a lawsuit. They're not going to wait forever projects. Once that power line's full, it's full. And,
Agree.
you know, I mean, I don't know, I got probably 10 friends that own land on it, you know? I was talking to a guy last night, he had 320 acres. He's like, you guys ever gonna get anything done? And I said, I don't know. He's up by Kirsty. And I said, I sure hope so. He goes, you know,
But I thought that already had the blessing,
what's that?
the people that already signed up for
They're
the,
getting $100 an acre while they wait, you know, but I think after 4 years, it goes away, $100. I think it might have been 50 and 100.
I think you're saying what we'd already agreed, or what was already agreed upon is what,
and it went to the
those people.
BZA and they got their exceptions.
But I think it went to lawsuit, and the judge told them to clean up the ordinance and come back.
I thought the judge said clean up because they said that they hadn't produced the right documentation
I don't
as
know, what
far
did
as
the
filing
judge
with
say?
you, right?
It wasn't ordinance.
Right, no, the judge didn't reference anything with the ordinance.
Right.
Now, quick question, Mike. You referenced White County and surrounding Stark, Jasper. Are they permitted? Do they require a special exception? Have you checked into that?
Yes, sir.
Even in Jasper County? Well, I know for a fact that it's still special exception in Jasper County. I am sure. I called and asked.
I talked to Kendall Culp, and it sounded like the Dunn Bridge 1 and Dunn Bridge 2's coming in.
They're approved, but they still had to go through a public hearing.
A public hearing like us, or
Mhm.
public
Well,
hearing that the commissioners.
no, a public hearing with the BCA. And I
About
don't know
White
about,
County. White County had said it's.
right, which they've been on the renewable energy platform a few years. Same way with Benton.
Don't you think they should have a special exception though? I mean, Mike disagrees, but anybody else, I feel that they should.
I feel there should be a public hearing, even if it's informational.
What are you referring to as special exception?
Well, if
It's
you're,
permitted, but you have to get a special exception granted for usage. Which is what is currently in the UDO.
Guess I don't.
Okay, so Mike, there are essentially
three options for how any particular use can be allowed on property. It can be allowed by right, which means no rezoning, no special exception, as long as your application for whatever is required meets Carla's thumbs up, you get your permit. That is what the proposal from the commissioners suggests for solar, commercial solar going forward. Option 2 is a special exception. That is what is currently required in the agricultural district or the industrial district for a commercial solar project. And that is where they must submit an application for a public hearing with the BZA, make their case, and then the BZA has to judge their presentation, their application on 5 criteria that are established by our ordinance and the BZA's rules of procedure. Third option is a rezoning or a map amendment like the Plan Commission just approved for the Frito-Lay project, whereby you might say in the ordinance that we only allow solar projects by right in the A2, which is, I think it's intensive agriculture is the name of it. So if there was already a property that was zoned A2, say a hog farm, and somebody tore the hog farm down and said, I want to put solar panels, they would be good to go. But outside of existing CAFOs, there is very little A2 in the county. So the Plan Commission, instead of the BZA, would conduct a public hearing. That would constitute, and if they said yes, they would recommend it to the commissioners, and that would constitute a change to the county's zoning ordinance, meaning it would be a change in county law. If it goes to the BZA, because the BZA is a quasi-judicial entity, it can be challenged, as is the case in the ones that have gone through thus far in the circuit court or superior. With a change of zoning, it can be challenged, but there is more deference shown to the county in that case because it is a legislative and not a quasi-judicial action. So the plan commission says, commissioners, you should change these 57 parcels to A2. Commissioners say yes, they are legally amending their county ordinance or county zoning law. Changes to ordinance still can be challenged, but like I said, there is greater deference shown by courts to those changes because they are legislative bodies making laws and not interpretations of laws. So those are the three options. Say no to the commissioners entirely on this point and keep it as requires a special exception. You'd say yes to the commissioners and say, we will allow it by right. Or you could say, we actually think rather than your option or the current option, we, the plan commission, want to get stuck with the 8-hour public hearings for a while, and we will make it a zoning change, and we just won't allow it in A1, and we will only allow it in A2, and possibly industrial districts, but we don't have enough industrial zoning that anybody would want to target those anyway. So it's just Carla saying, yes, everything is good here, maybe with plan commission review of the development plan, but no approvals required. BZA says, yes, this is good, or planning commission and commissioner say it's good. And two of those options get a public hearing so that the decision-making bodies at least hear public concerns, whether it's opposition or just specific concerns that they would like to see addressed. I'm okay with solar. I just think that you need to put a condition on here that says they need to let llamas or goats or something on every property or something, whatever it might be, so that in making the decision, public input is taken. Those are the three options.
Well, now I'm really,
So
but that don't,
BZA, with their special exception, they can add in conditions.
Conditions and or commitments,
APC wouldn't be able to do that.
I do believe the Indiana Code provides for the plan commission to require certain conditions. I'd have to double check. I don't have the blue book with me. But I think plan commission has the authority to require certain conditions and commitments with zoning changes too, but I'm not certain. It's a little bit different because with that BZA special exception, basically saying we're allowing you to change the nature of this property, and we'll call it superficial use for the lifetime of the solar project. Rezoning is a fundamental legal change of the nature of the property. So I don't know if when you're making that fundamental change in its identity, so to speak, the room for conditions and commitments is there the way it is when you're making a temporary decision. I'm going to pull that up on the Indiana Code and see if I can get you an answer.
okay, Todd, what do you got?
So basically, the number and type, which I feel that we should at least know the number type.
What's it to us?
It's our county, it's our land.
It's
Not
their
our
land,
land.
It's not yours.
not the county's
the
land.
Not my land, but it's still Pulaski County. Don't you think you should know what's going in your county? I mean, if they're gonna buy a bunch of junk, which I'm not saying they are.
It's the people's land, they can do what they wanna buy. Look at your neighbor or drive down past, what's his name's house on the way out to your farm, you wanna see
Well-
junk.
I'm not gonna discuss that, but
You know who I mean.
I
don't you?
know.
You know, if I have a business and I choose to put a legal, building or, a windmill that's appropriate for whatever it is, I don't know that you guys, you get to have a say over what I put, if it's a building or, you know what I'm saying? And so as long as it's a legal, solar panel, because they have to go through their checks and balances, I don't know that that's a deal breaker. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I understand that, and I'm totally for people's rights on their farm. I truly am.
Well, that's like saying somebody that drives a Chrysler's driving junk because you drive a GM product. I mean, who's to say what's junk and what's not? I mean, we want it done right, but
Well-
there's gotta be,
But then why all these changes? Who brought
that's a
this-
good question.
Who brought this forth? Because I thought it was pretty good the way it was.
We're not competitive.
I don't know if we're not. Why is this being changed when NextEra and Mammoth already agreed to
See
what
them
we
building
had?
anything yet? We're
Oh,
not
there's-
competitive. That's why.
I don't think the UDO is not making us competitive.
If we don't do something.
Because it's detailed, is that why it's not competitive?
It's just, you gotta go through all these BZA meetings already. Been doing this for over a year?
Like when they're putting in these panels, the panel people know how many they're looking at each one. So there should be no reason why they can't put that on there. Like, first thing,
Then just vote no on it. Give it back to the commission. It sounds like we're gonna say no. We're gonna come back in, how many days we have to have another meeting?
The 8th of May. Or
next,
that's next
That's
schedule.
the next regularly scheduled. That was something that, to do proper publication, which I was since informed later this afternoon that to the best of my knowledge, it needed to be 10 days for publication, but then I was informed because it's a continuation of a already public hearing, it's 48 hours.
Come back, 48 hours, and vote yes or no.
Or based on any other adjustments you may have from what was presented to you.
But we can't vote yes or no tonight? Got two. Neither one of them. Either one of them.
Do you think it's right that they're taking out the MSDS sheet and that information? They're not listing that with us?
That's already covered in the, when we said national.
It's,
Have you looked at the NECS?
I
That's
did-
like people are talking that we took out the fires.
no, we,
It's already addressed.
yeah, it's,
It's
as
already
far as I
addressed.
understand, definitely.
Okay,
That's
the
fine.
MSDS and all that is in that too. Look it up. Cause I have. Spent a lot of time on this. That's my point. We may have eliminated some of the verbiage, cleaned up the verbiage, but everything that we had already planted was all cut and paste. That's all we were doing. We were going to things that other counties were doing, and we looked at that and we says, well, okay, that sounds good. We're gonna go ahead and supplant that on ours. Well, then we come to find out when we start looking at it that, hey, you know what? This is already addressed. We're just repeating.
Yeah, I thought we cleaned all that stuff up. But now, like I say, they've come out with 84 changes.
But again, I disagree
They
that they're
had
changes.
lawyers and, looking through it.
Who had lawyers?
Kevin was involved, and they hired.
Justin. Oh,
They're still not gonna get around IDEM and that. They're still gonna have to follow
yeah.
the state. So it's not, even if we took it out completely, but again, we're addressing it because, say, in areas. But even if we took it out, the state would come in and say, okay, you still gotta abide by our rules, so,
And like OSHA, they gotta abide by OSHA rule.
right,
They gotta abide by all the state.
right.
I mean, thought that,
Different options to vote on? I mean, it doesn't just have to be yes or no on this.
You could have 5 or 6 potential recommendations on the table to vote on. Or not necessarily 5 or 6, I don't mean literally, but you could have 9 or 10, 1 or 2, 3 or 4.
You just vote no and it goes back to the commissioners.
Oh, we could. But, I mean, there's 84 changes here. I don't think you could possibly agree with every one of them. Have you read them?
Yeah. Went to her office and went one by one.
I feel like 70 of them literally are just like clerical kind
Right.
of changes and like, referencing different things and like, Mr. Snicker was saying in a different section, that we're finding it not we're finding it, they showed us where it was, but we're finding it other places. So it felt like as I was going through each one too, that there are like 70 like that. And then there may be 10 or so that are like, they were wanting to do the 60 decibels instead of the 50, that kind of stuff that I talked to a couple folks that were like, if that's a problem, it really can go back. And so I don't know if we said that the bigger ones, I feel it's a big, that some of those bigger ones that can go back to the way we had said it and researched it, that really wouldn't be a big issue if they got it back like that, if that makes sense.
I'd say the big ones are special exception, sound, trees.
The wind speed.
Yeah, like the wind speeds, like, what are we, engineers now here?
Well,
Yeah,
but
that's,
we did, it went from 112 to
Right,
90, but
yeah,
arbitrarily, like,
right.
For no real reason. So
Right,
why
yeah.
not just-
Does anybody know the reason for that? I mean, I know steel's up, so if they go down a level, like,
Like the tornadoes.
do they get to use cheaper steel?
Yeah, I think that's where the tornado starts and stops.
Right.
Yeah.
Was where we came up with the first number, but then they want to drop it down to 90, and nobody has a reason as to why.
And that they were okay if we put it
Right.
where we started on the little things like.
From them on this. I guess that's the problem I have with it too. They were like, I've listened to the meetings, so we don't know, like, everybody's getting to hear us talk right now. We know nothing of where this came.
Well, Chuck knows the county needs to do something. I think it was his idea to hash it out. Then Carla, some of those, Kevin did some of it, none of it. Chuck and Carla.
Of course, documentation came to my office for review, commission.
Right, that's
Yes.
where I saw it. That was.
Right,
Yeah,
because I had asked you all to
come in.
get information and sent emails to everyone, yes.
You got it from Kevin, right? The documentation? Yes.
I did.
What was what were they wanting to change the tree buffer to?
I think a quarter mile.
No, it's still showing half a mile. That's on,
It was like at a house occupied.
Yeah. If
I
they,
forget how they worded that.
That was 714.
Was it something about road frontage road?
I wanted to say there was a road.
On the recommendation, it's page 223, like Abby had said, it's 714B, perimeter perimeter buffer. Number 3, it does read, facing all habitable dwellings fit for human occupation on non-participating properties within a half a mile of a CSES. No, there was more specific language, it looks like, talking about having a horticulturalist involved in this portion. And the evergreens must be at least 6 feet tall on average by the beginning of on-site energy production. Any additional vegetation used to supplement or in lieu of evergreen trees must be of sufficiently similar maturity to meet the standards herein. All landscaping must meet the plan administrator's standards of approval, and the administrator may require the developer, owner, operator to upgrade installed vegetation screening to satisfy such standards. And then the language continues on about those property owners may waive the right for the planning requirements. And then that the landscaping buffering needs to be maintained and replaced when there's damage or plant illness by the developer, owner, operator. And then there was a new language added. This is on page 224, in regards to an online grievance form for anyone in the public who sees any vegetation landscaping concerns. They would submit it to the building and zoning office.
Aren't they wanting to eliminate buffer along?
C reads screening along non-participating properties that are used for agrivoltaic purposes and do not otherwise require screening for adjacent roads or dwelling units shall not be required.
Is marked out.
Okay, 714B, number 3, it says the planning and landscaping along the perimeter of the CSES shall be required, and then it's crossed out on the outside of perimeter fencing along road frontage and then it continues to say facing all habitable dwellings fit for human occupation on non-participating properties within a half a mile of a CSES. So they're wanting to eliminate on the outside of perimeter fencing along. Yeah, they're wanting to eliminate on the outside of the perimeter fencing along road frontage.
So what do they consider?
I would assume what is facing the road.
But, I mean, not directly across from a house?
That, I don't know.
It should still say screening non-participating residential. It
It says
does.
within a half a mile. So that'll outweigh a house across the road.
And it would
Screen.
screen it, yeah. So the way we've in our office understood it, if this is a county half a mile block, there's your house at that corner, road, here's this intersection. You're going to have your screening on the participating properties at their fence, not on your property. But because this is a half a mile here, there would not be a requirement for screening, but it would screen your residential structure there within the half a mile window. Is that how you've all felt?
The one solar company's giving a basket of bread to you every year, or, if you live close to them. So, can you, can they opt out of that? You know, giving people what they call some incentive. What if you didn't want it? I wouldn't.
I wouldn't want evergreens. I'd have my equipment in it.
You have the option to.
You have the option.
Yeah,
Send there.
but some people probably do want, and I could understand you, but I'd say most people care less one way or another. Actually, the intersection is gonna make it harder to see cars coming, so just, how far you keep them back from intersection and just everything involved. It's a place for deer to hide, to jump out in front of you.
Well, Mike, I think you gotta remember that whatever decision the planning commission commissioners make about the visual screening, there's still a 150-foot setback to the first panel. So there's 150 feet in there on which to fit the visual screening and the fencing without being right up against the road, depending on the specific land contours, locations of other adjacent properties. There's gotta be some room for engineers and horticulturists and everyone else to figure out where to put it so that those issues, like the one you're raising about corner vision, are avoided. That there's half a football field in which to work there.
Just, I don't think most people.
There's also language in our ordinance that requires a site triangle, which is an intersection in regards to planning of landscaping as well as fence installation that you have to be so far back to. But as Nathan said, this is a 150-foot minimum.
I'm gonna sound like the second grade teacher that I am. But I feel like at this point, we need to come up with these options, to be able to, what we have to take, or we vote on it next month. Or we can, what to send.
Well, probably that 48-hour window would apply at that point. Yeah, and as long as you all can come to a general consensus of what you feel comfortable with.
It sounds like we already have two, and then to hear the other things that you would like to kind of get included, because one would be no, like a flat out, we're not sending it, and the other has something to do on the order of keeping it with the BZA approving as they come through, and so it would be no to the change of how it's zoned, right? And then like a third option would be that it's sent with a couple of changes to what they sent us, like with the wind speed or the, noise, or Mr. Snicker has some other things that, that we may want to watch to send that. I mean, you're kind of on the same.
Yeah, like I say, my main concern is the permit. Again, we already beat that up pretty good, but, I don't know that I still fully understand that I didn't want to just blanket stamp a permit on it. may want to too. And again, Mike, I'm still confused about what you're saying, that you're dragging it down. You know, I don't fully understand what you're getting at.
Well, we're making so many rules.
But
They can't even do what they want on their own ground. If they have 80 acres, you can't even put solar panels on your own ground because this body is sitting here and the other body and the commissioners, the council, we're all sitting here saying, oh, we gotta do this. Oh, you gotta have a tree here. Oh, you can't do this. Then it goes, it's like those landowners that pay taxes, they don't even get, why should they even have to have a setback? They don't have to have a setback for a 12-foot corn stalk.
But that's there for a few months out of the year.
Well, so they don't have to have a setback.
Correct.
You know, there's deer, motorcycles run that time of year too. Deer run right out, but now we got 150 feet. We're just taking away the property rights of the people. That's why the whole thing is property rights.
The solar companies agreed to all of them.
That's fine, but you know why they agree? I don't know. I wouldn't agree to any of it.
But they did, both of them did. Now we're trying to change it.
Yeah, if they agreed to it, go along with what they agreed to. If everybody's in favor of solar, if you're not in favor of solar, then you're gonna vote no anyhow. But if you're in favor of solar, go along with what they agreed to.
That's what I'm saying, Mike. I don't understand why this was even brought to us with all these changes. The two companies agreed to it. They have the biggest chunk at the moment.
Yeah,
There's others waiting in the wings, don't get me wrong, I know that.
how come it did? I mean, I've only been on this board 2 months. I don't understand why we,
So I'm saying, someone generated this for their liking. Why? Who?
yeah, if the solar panels are happy with it, let them sign and let them get digging.
Well, if we don't vote, we're not gonna get it. We need to vote. You can come back in 48 hours and vote whatever you wanna vote, or leave it the way it is. No recommendation.
And send it back to the commissioner?
Yeah, with no recommendation.
Well, the special exception, I can't go with that without it. There's no reason to not have that, in my opinion. There's no reason, in my opinion, not to have MSDS sheet with the proposal. I don't understand why they want to take out the UL listing. It's not approved, it's listing. Why would you take that out?
it's not being taken out though. It's in the national regulations.
What's wrong with having it in both? What's wrong with having it in both?
But again, why,
If it's easier to find, maybe somebody's not finding it over here, so that's what's causing.
well, it's just like we were talking earlier, that none of us are electrical engineers here. Okay? So although I respect Carla, I'm not gonna go by her word when it comes to solar panels being placed where my kids or somebody might run out to them. I still want that engineer that's governing that, just like we've had this guy here tonight from the Dairyville thing going on to answer questions. I mean, he knows what he's doing. Don't you want an electrical engineer that's designing this, that is gonna be producing this much energy, to have some say in what they're doing? They're not gonna, I don't think they're gonna go out and invest this kind of money without having an engineer give his okay on it. So all I'm saying is we're already saying that the National Electrical Code is gonna be a thing. Well, fire safety, the other things just brought up. It's already addressed in the national code. Here, I'll give it to you right here.
And the UL will contradict the others, just whoever's paying them the most to get out their report, that's just business. I mean, county government is terrible about getting consultants, and they all got a different idea. So just which one do you end up going with?
But that's it. Even that, we've addressed.
Yeah,
In my opinion,
yeah,
when we said that, okay, she doesn't feel comfortable, she can call whoever she talks to in the industry and they recommend. And the, developer is gonna cover the cost plus 5%.
yeah.
Just for her having to go through the problem of having to call and make contact with the people. And guess what? All the developers said, hey, we're good with that.
So we ought to be good
So,
with it.
exactly. So what are
Yeah.
we arguing about? Again, the only thing I don't understand, even now, is I agree exactly with what you're saying. If it's your property, you want to do it, let's you go with it. I understand that. Because I wouldn't want you to come to my property and tell me,
Yeah,
I'm good with that. But again, it's just like you were just saying about the farmer. I mean, my biggest gripe is always been the corner of 300 and 119, going to the golf course. We've got teenage kids running out there, and guess what? That farmer plants right up to that road. There's no setback. I call the state, I call the county, and nobody can give me how much footage. We're saying 150 cover everything. Nobody's been able to tell me how much far back that corn should be planted, should not be able to allow to go to what it currently does.
I can answer that question. Janet
Okay.
Up had done a whole book. Like, county road, they'll have it over here. County road, if it's 60 foot, it's 60 foot from the center, that's where your corn's supposed to start.
Okay, well, see, nobody's been able
And they don't usually have a guts to cut it.
to. I've called the state, and they said, well, we'll send guys out and cut it down. Okay. Well, here, and the problem again, to me, is that the high school kids high school kids are, they're never, right? They come up to that corner, their mind's on getting back to town to get an ice cream cone or see their girlfriend or whatever. They're not stopping it. Same thing with the water being sprayed out on the county roads. You were there. I don't think you were there then. You might have been there as a farmer, but farmers all came out in mass. You know what? We're gonna
Oh, I
govern
remember
ourselves.
that.
We're gonna govern ourselves. You don't have to fine us.
As when the commissioner went uptown, everybody,
Right.
they
Right,
was out in
right,
the hallway and
right.
up and down the
So
aisle. on
that's
that
the reason I'm
irrigation.
saying that, yeah, we still have to have, I mean, I agree we shouldn't bind them, but give me something that we're binding them. I don't see anything in our UDO that we're binding them.
Have the right to put the solar panel on, why do you have, permitted use, why do you have to go to the BCA and APC, whatever, get the right to do it when it's already permitted?
Either it is a permitted use or you have to go to the.
Okay, well, it needs to be
I think we're
permitted.
getting confused on our terminology a little bit. It's either a permitted use or it is not, and that is the entire question. Whether it should be permitted or whether it needs to be one of those alternatives.
Well, I think it should be permitted. I think they're permitted.
You hide it well. But the way he just said it, I'm in favor of it too.
Because it's
Have
a,
respect.
because it's a property right.
Right.
And another thing is, okay, so right now, who makes all the money in the power business? Me, I think it'd be like Duke Energy, AEP, NIPSCO. Right now, I mean, John with five, well, I should say five, I don't know if they buy that many. John with 100 acres, Fred with 100 acres, Tim with 100 acres. They're all gonna make money in the power business. Right now, all big makes the money. Well, now, those guys are gonna at least get a piece of the pie. We're sitting here shooting down the, making it hard for people to do that.
Yeah, but we weren't. They approved, they.
They-
agreed to
yeah.
what we had. We weren't trying to hold anything up at that point. We all agreed on our UDO. And then a couple weeks ago, they were like, hey, wait, and giving us, this other. So we weren't trying to like drag.
And let's vote no to it then. No recommendation. I think the solar company wants to know so they can get started. Well, I mean, maybe we should wait 48 hours.
Well, we have to, it sounds.
I think we should come up with a different recommendation.
I'm with Tyler on that. You know, if you just say no, because at the end of the day, we all know, no matter what the planning commission says, it is ultimately the commissioner's decision. That is how our state law is structured. You have to go through all the hoops. You're here as an advisory commission. That said, if you just say yes or no, you're not really advising. If you say, you know what, we like 37 of your 84, we think you should keep another 40 of them the way the ordinance is now, and then we have these 7 that we think would be better suited. Whether they take your advice or not, you are at least accepting your responsibility to advise them. If you just say no because you're tired of me fighting, then you haven't really done the commissioners or the public a service. If you go through and every one of them and you say we agree with the commissioners, at least you have gone to the effort to say we think you have made a good proposal. If you just say no with no qualification, no suggestions for amendments,
Well, if you say no, then they get to do it the way they want, they get to anyway.
they do, but.
So we're gonna go we spend $500 every meeting, come up here. County doesn't have money now to give anybody a 15-cent raise. And, you know, $500 every time, well, then they're gonna do what they want to anyway.
But at least you can say you have upheld your responsibility to them and to the public.
Go by one. That's a statement.
And that's why we were trying to go through the ones that we were concerned about, where he was trying to share, and we were talking about the bullet. I mean, I think that's what we were trying to do, is to go through the ones that we were concerned about.
Like the wind.
Yeah.
Keep it at 112?
Could we do that? I got scolded the other day for doing that,
What?
for wanting to straw poll.
Yeah, but we had reasoning behind it, and they didn't really have a great reason that they wanted to change it, so he's just saying, let's keep it at that, and then we can move on to the next if we all agree with that.
Can we do that, remember?
You can discuss it. That's why I had asked 2 weeks ago for everybody to review your concerns and then come in and talk to us, and we can meet individually or two. So then if you had some insight that somebody else didn't think of with us communicating together, then that could help answer one another's questions. So then if you could, as a board, come to a general consensus of specific things, that because one person wants the sky blue, another one wants the sky green, another one wants it purple, well, then somebody who was not certain between blue and purple, well, then by working together to discuss it, hence the reason why we had talked about trying to have just a meeting where you all can just speak without people in the public shouting out, and so you can all focus and bounce ideas back and forth like what you have been doing. So you can, based on what you have all stated, specific concerns. Like I have the list of concerns that were brought up on the 16th. So yes, you can take you can, like we've already said, approve what you got, deny what you've got, approve it with specific concessions that you as a whole have requested, and you can vote on it that way. Tonight, you cannot vote on it that way, though. But you can today all decide what you feel you're comfortable with, what's in the best interest, and then we can go to that 48 hours, 10 days, whatever as a board you collectively decide. And then you can vote. You just cannot bring up anything new that you haven't already discussed, like say you want to talk about section 5, which there would most likely be no reason to, or section 1, because you've spoken of section 2, 4, 7, and 8. So if you feel that you do want to address the concerns that you've got as you've been going back and forth, I can reshare some items that you had concerns on that it seemed collectively had all agreed on in regards to items such as keeping, and I have the sections keeping wind speed at 112, keeping noise decibels at 50. It was recommended to state in 714H4, instead of chemical application, say pesticide. In regards to the signs, it was to say, or as industry standards, or whichever is more stringent I mean, we can look it up specifically, state NEC regulations, which is kind of a common sense thing, but put the language in there. I mean, common sense to NEC, not to us, of course, because we don't delegate federal regulations. So is that something you want to do as a board? Any main concerns, like Todd had given us a list and we sat and we hashed through the different thoughts and shared his concerns. Does anybody else, do you want to do like what Mike just said? Do you want to go line by line or person by person, or how do you want to approach this?
Line by line.
Which is what we did do on the 16th.
Right.
Which is why I had said 2 weeks ago, if you guys had your specific concerns, let's address all of that then.
Carla, I think you just covered 95% of what we talked about, besides the special exception.
Right.
I think that's the thing, the special exception is a deal breaker. I think that other stuff with the wind speed, that's 112. Noise, I don't think that noise is going to be a concern. Trees, I don't like the trees. But it sounds like the trees are down to half mile. That's what the commission's recommendation was. Whatever they recommend.
So what's the property value guarantee? I haven't heard much about that.
That's not in the ordinance, since it's technically not a land use scenario, but it presently is labeled as it's something that the BZA would discuss when you have your meetings as a potential condition and commitment.
If we do away with meetings, like, discuss it.
Right. The PVG, property value guarantee.
Right, so if the special exception's gone, PVD's gone.
Is that correct?
Yes, because that was part of one of the conditions for the board to consider reviewing.
I feel the special exception has to stay.
And if you feel that you'd like the special exception to stay, then are there some items that you would want? You have many options that you could discuss if there were specific things that somebody was concerned on in section 2, which would be part of the special exception application process.
Moss Solar give a property guarantee.
Yes,
They all agreed to property guarantee, right?
yes. Theirs was,
So is it in their UDO?
Are the people gonna
So
share
they have
if it
meetings?
goes up with them?
is what?
If the price goes up, or the landowner's gonna share the profit?
A good question.
But
I don't think so. Just be the right thing to do, wouldn't it?
that would be Christian.
So based on what Todd had said in regards to feeling, Todd, not to use your name,
Did you
but
find?
in regards to his preference to keep the special exception in place, is this something that you would all like to address and review and consider?
can we raise our hand, how many are for it and how many are against it, so we can at least get this meeting moving?
I think we need to keep special.
So there's the answer right there, you got 1, 2, 3.
I don't have any problems. And that could sit up for everybody. All you gotta do is get everybody to agree with it. And if you're doing something wrong, everybody isn't gonna agree with it. Something right, everybody should agree with it. Right?
I don't think so, I think if it's your property, you should be able to put it on there without somebody telling.
Well, I'm all for property rights too, but I guess I would hate to see somebody put a atomic reactor bomb in my,
They're not talking that, they're only talking solar panels.
I
So we're
know.
only talking like it's okay for solar. You're not on the broad spectrum of property rights.
That?
I
Yeah, I
said,
am, I'm on the broad spectrum.
so I mean, you'd be fine
my
with
opinion.
anything going in next to you.
Yeah, your property. The agriculture, don't ag.
Right.
I don't know if the nuclear reactor with bombing is ag, but
I doubt it.
So as a board, you feel you want to keep the special exception requirement in the ordinance? If you do, are there, like I stated earlier, are there options that you want to consider, such as size? Like you need a special exception for so many acres.
Is that per parcel or whole project?
Well, you couldn't do parcel, so, I mean, I guess just, we're throwing that out there, project.
I'm just asking. Yeah, per parcel, you can find loop.
And who's gonna limit it? Like, why are you limiting, you know, if they
Right.
follow rules and restrictions?
Well, with the special exception, can you put a solar panel on 1 acre?
That wouldn't be considered
You-
commercial.
No, it wouldn't be, well,
I think we're focusing on.
I don't think they're gonna let you connect to the grid with 1 acre of solar panels.
And with
Or
the
five.
setbacks, you can't do
Right.
anything on an acre.
Wasn't there a 5 acre?
There was, but they're
Yes,
wanting to
and-
get rid of it.
Friend that's got a solar panels on that feeds the grid, and he's only got 3 acres.
Well, like wholesale electric
Well,
to
they
the,
pay him so much. The
is
White
that like
County
through White County?
RMC.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's got solar panels and what he don't use, he gets a check for a third of what it costs. But
Is it considered a commercial scale though?
no, it's his private one,
Right,
Yeah,
but
well,
he still sells it to the grid.
right.
I think they're phasing that out. But I don't.
He says he gets 9% on his investment. So,
you'd consider that wholesale?
not retail. They don't pay you, hear what they sell it for.
he just lives across the Pulaski County line about. He sells White County RMC. He said that he had money in the bank and he bought the solar panels because the bank wasn't. I know another guy who probably.
So I'm assuming though he's not an LLC or incorporated for those panels on his,
No, he just had a little restaurant and made a lot of money and now he's got solar panels and he gets 9% on the money.
I don't feel you want to restrict use for commercial uses that are servicing their electrical with solar panels.
All he had to do is have a cutoff in case electricity went off, it wouldn't shock the lineman. And we gotta have that for a generator. I don't think special exception takes away property rights. I'm like there, but I don't understand it enough to know if that's right or wrong. Taking away property rights, and I'm not really for it. But if it's just making people do stuff somewhat right, then I'm kind of for it. See what I'm saying?
That's how I look at it, just making stuff get done right.
Yeah. But I don't know if special exception does or doesn't. I mean, who's to really judge?
Well, if you have a permitted use, why do you need a special? Already permitted.
That's what the recommendation is stating, to make it be a permitted use. So then you're right. If it was a
Yeah.
permitted use, you wouldn't need the special exception. But as
I thought
Brianne
we- I
had
thought we were
recommended,
taking, wanted solar in ag ground, it said.
that's what the recommendation brought to the board reads. But as Brianne had said, then if you remove the special exception process and make it be a permitted use, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you say so many acres and have a meeting, an informative meeting, so before the permit's actually issued, then the public's aware of the situation. There also are timelines that they're not going to get a permit. They're not going to come in and go, here's my paper. Here this is, and here's my site plan. You know, that's a shed or a pole barn or a swimming pool. They're just to list off a few, which it's not that simple, but with commercial solar, if it were to be a permitted use, your application process is quite lengthy still. As you read in our ordinance now, there's a lot of documentation that is required. They won't get a permit issued right away, even with a special exception. As it stands right now, you have to have the economic development agreement signed, you have to have a road use agreement signed, you have to have the drainage agreement. Without those in agreement with the surveyor, with the county highway, with the economic development director, the council, commissioners, the building department won't issue a permit. If the building department issues a permit and IDEM says, oh, you have 500 acres in wetlands, then there goes the permit from the building department. So there are a lot of areas that they have to go through before the permit will be issued to them. And I know that there's even, as it stands, something, is it, Nathan, the economic development agreement has been signed. And feel free to interject, there's still a 90-day window before a permit can be issued from everything being satisfied from the economic development agreements being signed. There's some language in there, there's 90 days somewhere for some documentation. But anyway, not to quote me on the 90 days because I'm not exactly certain where it is. There's still a lot of hoops they have to jump through and offices signing off and organizations signing off and council signing before a permit is issued.
So we have our list of that you've accumulated with us, and then I think, and I mean, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to the list, or where are we at?
Like, did we have on the list about where the materials come from, that nature? I know I kind of heard that last time.
Well, based on what Todd had shared this evening in regards to the UL listing and MSDS sheets, but
Because we had talked about trying to have it more of a US made product if possible, like where these panels are coming from. I think that's in, 2E6, I believe it is. Like if they can list, that's just saying they need to list it, and that was being taken out. if you're not even gonna tell us where it's coming from, that is something we need to ask, probably.
Well, it's being a dictator.
You know, I'm kind of with Mr. McClure on this one. Now, I don't care whether it's UL or one of their competitors. The only thing that ultimately matters as far as your responsibility goes is that they are compliant.
But can we
I
have,
mean, you know what? I'm this close to a protectionist and I'd love to see it all made in America.
no, and I understand that.
You know, we put that in there, but we should not, that's not land use, as long as it's compliant with national codes.
But
However
can we
much
at
we
least
might,
ask them for, said the potential equipment manufacturers and models, like that?
yeah, that, no, I agree, that part should be in there, but any language about country of origin, whether it's,
Agreed, I should have said that, yeah.
whether it's as you must use American made or we show preference. I mean, that's honestly, that's vacuous language. What does it mean to show preference? Are we gonna knock $10 off your permit fee if it's made in America? I mean, I think we'd all love this. I'd love this, if this goes forward, I'd love to see us put a solar panel manufacturing facility in the Winnemac Industrial Park. We can't require them to use American made.
Well, that's like saying.
Yeah, federal government has that authority, but we don't have that authority.
That'd be like saying it has to be all UAW work. We can't say that either. We got the right to work state. So it can't be all union. Most of them are going in union. We can't dictate. They have to use union labor or hire people off the street.
But the UDO did say preference.
Yeah, and honestly, I regret that we included that because that's not something we should even attempt to dictate.
But again, Nathan, both companies agreed to that.
That's not relevant, I don't think, in this case. This isn't a standard that we can enforce. The ones, they agreed, you know, I agree with a lot of, they agreed to certain visual
Screening requirement, so we know that they can do that. But whether or not they agreed to it isn't the question, it's whether we have any legal authority to require country of origin, and we're really overstepping our bounds as a planning commission. That's my concern.
But we can ask them though to put down the equipment's manufacturer and models, the number of equipment that they're gonna put and the type.
Right, and I do think that's reasonable to keep in because, you know, whether Carla and Tina undergo training to be able to assess it themselves or they hire an electrical engineer who knows solar, that's the sort of information that whoever is making sure that this this project is installed properly needs to know. You know, whatever they have in front of them in advance to know that this this brand, this manufacturer, this model is reliable and there aren't 37 instances out of 40 where there have been major electrical fires before. That's reasonable, I think.
So back to. You want the special exception, what was submitted to you? This is where I guess you need to look at what was recommended and are you satisfied with these recommendations, but still, of course, make them part of the applications for special exception?
We're holding them to the UDO. Why do we need the special exception? Because it's still gonna have to, like you said, it's gotta go through them, it's gotta go through you, it's gotta go through all the other ones. Everything we've got in the UDO already says that they've got to abide by the code. So why would we need special exception? I mean, I was against it when I first walked in, but after listening to everything tonight, I'm kind of like, you know what, like you said, it's that farmer's property, it's his property. We've covered his neighbor with UDR. We made him make sure that it's safe. We made him make sure that he's protected by some feet and the rest of it, so.
And, it's a heck of a thing to say, but if something does come up that the company doesn't do that, it's infringing highly on the neighbor's just gonna have to get a lawyer and take care of their own business. I mean, that's,
How many of you own property at the table? Simple question. How many of you own real property, whether in this county or another? Now,
why is that, man?
now, you own that. How do you know that you own that property?
You don't.
I got my tax.
I got my tax bill today too. That's the sign I don't own.
How do you know that you own that property? A deed recorded by, where's that deed recorded?
Recorder's office,
Which is an entity of,
Pulaski County,
what's the last word there?
county,
After that, what's the word?
government.
Pulaski County government. You cannot sit here and say that it is just your land to do what it is when you only have the protection of that property because of the police powers of the state. The entire reason that zoning exists is because the state has a responsibility in protecting your land and your neighbor's land. So when you say it's their land that can do it, no, that's not true. I mean, you only realistically own that land either because you have a piece of paper that says you do, or because you got a few firearms to protect the neighbor who's deciding that he wants to claim that, because we live in a society. And part of a society is respecting your neighbors. I made myself clear a week and a half ago. I think this is a great thing for the county, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't protect the neighbors. And the question Ray brought up about why do that is that, and I'm not saying Carla, but whoever's in that position at any given time, if there is no process other than her stamping it, or the very minimum, the plan commission looking at individual site plans and saying these meets our standards, who's going to come up and say, hey, you know what? That 400-acre parcel is really close to where this school is going to be built. Do you think it should be there? Whether it's this or it's a gravel pit, any sort of, the whole reason is there is to make sure that there is public comments, that you can get the sense of what the public says and what good points they make. Also, so there's a deliberative body of people charged with making these decisions in the best interest of the community. It puts a lot of pressure on that staff with some highly controversial issues. If we take away if we don't either change it to a zoning change or keep it as a special exception, all the death threats are going to go to just to Carla and Tina instead of being spread out against 10 to 20 of you. No, it doesn't. If
No,
there
it's
is,
green lighted.
if it is by right, that's it. It only goes to the commissioners if it's a zoning change that the plan commission sees first.
And that would eliminate any extra conditions. I mean, let's say solar farm A goes in and they run into problems and they're like, well, next one, we're gonna require this. You can't do that. And I know Jasper County's already ran into some issues. And I'm not saying that's gonna happen here, but I'm not gonna say it's not.
How many things change if we go without a special exception? I mean, we've already said property rights, guaranteed, price guarantee.
That would be like the condition. We would no longer be able to do that. There'd be no public hearing.
I mean, there's like 18 or 20 of them probably. I'm just guessing.
Right.
That's
I-
why.
Todd, let me put it this way. If you go to buy right, you sure as hell better spend a lot more than 8 hours making sure that every line in the ordinance is pitch perfect, to protect the rent landowners either way.
Because they will find a loophole.
If there is a BZA process especially, at least there's a way to catch things. You know what? I really wish we had X in the ordinance. We'll tell the plan commission they should change that for the next round of changes, but for now, we're gonna slap a condition. If you want this, or a commitment, you want this, we'll prove it. You need to do X, Y, and Z. Personally, I am partial to rezone versus special exception just because there are 9 of you instead of 5, and because the courts show greater deference to changes in law, so that if you all do it right, it's much likelier that it gets approved and goes through without as long and onerous a legal system, but there's gotta be something. The one downside to going to change of zoning as opposed to special exception is that you lose the conditions and commitments. I did look that up, so we would have to, again, damn sure that everything in the ordinance is dead on without any room for ambiguity. Make sure that every one of those projects, when it gets approved, is on top of things.
Like Bob had brought up the PPG, and we cannot add that to the ordinance.
That'd be gone.
That's from the BZA.
I agree, that's what I'm saying. So many things change.
I got a CAFO right down from my house, they didn't guarantee my property value. I smell cow manure. Guess what, I live in the country. If I don't wanna smell cow manure, I should move to town.
You may have to.
I doubt it.
Without a special exception, anything could go in without any comment. Not just solar, whatever it is. It can all come in.
Well, and their comments have changed, some of the language we've used a couple times because the public is pretty educated, and I think they have a lot of good points to share. And I personally would hate losing that part of it. As hard as it is to sit sometimes and go home and sit on it some more, but I think it's important.
Me too.
I think it's essential. Yep. I think so many times people that, if you're on this side of it, when you think of public comment, you think it's only against you. You never know how many people, maybe that public comment push your way. Like, you gotta look at public comment for the good of everybody.
You also have the silent majority talk about.
Well, you're right, Mike, and that's why last week or 2 weeks ago I said, it's not how many people come out and say they're against it. It's the quality of the public input you get. 37 different people saying, I don't like this versus 12 people saying, I like this because X, Y, and Z might carry the weight. And at the end of the
80% of the people don't even care.
Until it affects them.
Exactly, not in my backyard.
MB,
What is it?
MB. IN.
Something there.
So everything in section 2 pertains to the application and special exception application process. So based on the recommendations that were submitted to the board versus what was, or what presently is in the ordinance, if you've come to a consensus that you feel it's in the county's best interest to keep the special exception, current regulations versus recommended, do you feel comfortable with the recommended and it would still be classified, or, well, of course you have to recommend, you want it instead of, as it reads in the recommendation, 2.3R, which is page 57 of the recommended, it reads application for all SES. So of course that would read special exception application. But you need a special exception application for all CSES, commercial solar energy.
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
If you feel that as a board, you're concerned to keep the special exception process for commercial solar based on what the recommendations that were submitted for in section 2, page 57. Those recommendations are as they read would apply for special exception, not for application if you're asking to or recommending to keep special exception for commercial solar.
Before permit or after, is that what?
No, that would be for the special exception application. So that would be, those are the documents that would be required for an entity to apply for a special exception for commercial solar.
Well, I think keeping the special exception in there kind of gives us a little control. Am I right or wrong? If we see that something that just very unforeseen, then we probably have a better chance of slowing it down. I don't know what it is. Probably something where we kept that special exception in there. Am I right or wrong?
Right?
So when you look
I-
at, I'm so sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I guess that's the only reason I'm in favor of it. I still think that people got the right to do what they want with their property, but yet I don't think they got the right to destroy the neighborhood. And with the special exception, also that now. Am I thinking right or am I way out in left field?
Subjectively speaking, I'm not going to comment on that. Objectively speaking, you are following a logical thought process.
What do we gotta do, vote on it?
Well, we have to do it in
You have-
48 hours
Right.
minimum.
So you need
I mean,
to,
on the special exception.
Correct. Got to be a 48-hour minimum. So do we set a meeting date?
We've been here 48 hours, haven't we?
every meeting, every meeting. No. But, so if you look at your section to what our ordinance presently reads, where you see the strike-throughs, and you see that there are some adjustments, do you feel that when you've compared the section to currently what our ordinance reads versus the recommendations, we're at that point now where you would need to determine what language you want in there? No. Like if you're looking at the recommendation versus what's presently in our ordinance, the copies that show the strike through, that show what could potentially be removed based on the recommendation that was given to Plan Commission. Are there things collectively you all feel you're okay with in the potential recommendation, or something that as you discuss what's in the ordinance presently, you would like to have put back in the recommendation if that is what were to be submitted to the commissioners? If you were to vote, which you're not. But we need to put a document together so you have something to base your recommendation on.
So 3 of the things are just moved to a different section.
He's wrong.
4.
D's moved. So D was moved.
Are you looking at the recommended or are you looking at our current ordinance?
On the current.
Okay.
R1E, I think Tyler's talking about. For the first one's number of panels and type.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that should be in there, but I don't think anybody else is that worried about that.
I think that should be.
You think it should be in there?
Developers know how many they're wanting.
I just think it's important to have a complete plan.
I feel it's important based on all the gray areas I've seen in our ordinance. The only concern with that is if somebody comes in and says, we're gonna do 500,000 solar panels, but they actually only put 4,995 in. Okay.
And I can see that point too.
Now, wouldn't the layout and specs and all that be?
So with that, so you could have them submit a site plan that has a tentative number of panels, and then prior to the permit being issued, you can have them submit a final site plan.
I mean, even if you did a site plan and they had the tentative number of panels, let's say they maxed out the area with the setbacks, because they're gonna have restrictions between panels, and that's gonna be like federally dictated. So, I mean, even if their site plan showed the max, you'll at least know that they want to keep that number.
Maximum number.
And that's gonna be area based. And again, dictated by energy.
Well, they're gonna be federally
Right.
watched terrible, they're getting federal money, they're gonna have more people watching them than they probably have working.
Because your site plan's gonna show what you're planning on.
Yeah,
They're there.
nice to have a general idea, but I'm sure it won't be 100% what they say, no.
I do think Carla made a good point there where she kind of suggested that there might be two phases of the site plan. Because if you look in the ordinance, as Carla and I have discussed, there is a section that specifically says that site plans need to be reviewed by the plan commission, regardless of whether it's by right, a zoning change, or a special exception. So requiring the applicant to have a finalized site plan down to every tree and panel when they submit for a zoning change or for a special exception seems A, redundant, and B, unnecessary. I mean, fundamentally, what you're deciding with the special exception is if their overall plan for the project meets the 5 or 6 criteria. So rather than, saying you need to have a site plan at this scale with every single dot checked as we've had in the past, you could have a condensed site plan requirement for the initial application. And if they get the special exception and they get through all the drainage agreement approval, all of that, then prior to permit application, say, all right, now the planning commission needs to, and that's where planning commission might have 40 pages of I don't even know, of oversized paper documenting every detail of every parcel. And that, I think that that's a place where we're just putting too much work on the developers and all of you and the public that early in the process.
Well, irregardless of whether the site plan comes to the meeting or not, they're still going to have a full set of plans.
Right.
So, and I mean, it's gonna show the site, it's gonna show the design, it's gonna have the specs and all those details, utilities, existing, proposed. I don't know, do we have an as-built required for, like, cutting the red tape for operation? Because that is usually standard site plan done when the project. So,
Final.
then when the as-bilt's done, that will show what is currently there. So it will prove that it was done to spec, it'll prove that the fences are set where they should be, panels are set where they should be, they follow the rules, regulations, and setbacks. That's what those as-bills are for.
This is just a general description of what they're.
The site plan would be coming in and showing you what they're proposing. The as-built would be at the end and it shows, and it's not that we'd see the as-built would go to Carla's office.
Well, am I right or wrong? They're kind of waiting on us to approve their permits before they make that.
Well, the as-bilt's at the end, so.
I know what I asked.
They've got to put it in before you do.
So are you considering wanting for 2.3 R1E1 instead of language reading, which is a strike through, number of panels or maximum number of panels?
Maybe we'll have minimum too, because the economic development agreement, the more they produce, the more money the county gets.
Agree with that? Somebody not agree with that? So you would like to see the language for 2.3 R1E to read minimum and maximum number of panels? So you want it to say range of panels?
I don't care. I don't think we need not be down to their business.
It's gonna vary. I mean, you have as-built at the end of the job, when you know how it's built.
Estimated number of panels at application?
Estimated number, what makes
Well, I mean, we're gonna know the site size. So, I mean, like I said, the size is going to dictate how many panels can go on it, following setbacks.
I don't know if all the panels are the same. You know, maybe some of them are 2 meters, like 6 meters. Maybe some of them are 1.5 meters.
Have you ever looked at it? Everything's square.
They're all
There's
made in
no
America, they're
differentiating.
4 foot by 4 foot.
I figured it'd be a meter.
Well, yeah, I'll say, but it's gonna be made in America. So they're 4 foot by 8 foot.
Carla, you putting type on there, did that?
I'm putting what you all recommend. What do you, let's decide on number one. I'm sorry, Abby, like, so 2.3 R1E, 1, estimated number of panels.
That makes
Okay, now what was,
The type, I think you had mentioned, that was number 2.
Yep.
And the manufacturer and model, I think those were the 3 points that were taken out that he was talking about.
how do you feel as a board?
Should be on the hearing plan.
Until they're getting close to the building, it's gonna be, it may be hard for them to know.
You're right.
If they could fill it out now and just put in A. Because they, probably until they start building, they won't.
And whatever they use has to follow federal guidelines,
Yeah, exactly.
because that's gonna be a higher governing body, and I think language in there stating that higher entities obviously have control.
No to type?
I personally don't need any of that, because I feel like it can change in theory, but
Like-
if that's important, then say it's important.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't use different types in different areas just to see which works out the best, which generates the most, which has the least amount of maintenance and stuff, as to think they're all going to be exactly the same.
And as they come, if they, did the thing come as a project whole, like all the acres, phase 1? So if we did the type, is that for,
Right?
no, or are they gonna do field?
I think if you want my opinion based on what comes in our office, I feel it's too restrictive for people. For example, when somebody does a new construction, or my own personal 9 months when my house was gutted out, they changed specific items due to manufacturers discontinuing items or just not
Exactly.
continuing their service. I don't feel that it's beneficial to hold somebody to a specific type if it's out of their control.
And you don't ask for types when you're residential or even commercial building.
Right. Your window
they
is gonna
do
be
have to
this type
follow-
of window, but what
They
type?
have to follow code.
Right, which is federal code.
So panels are gonna have to follow code.
The size might, and the height, you don't know how many they can get.
Think of what solar
Manufacturer.
panels looked like in 1980 89 when it was half the front of somebody's house and for bigger than those satellite dishes. How we got, and now they're 3x5,
If they could. even
or they're
get 'em
roof
all.
mount, or they're shingle size, so.
I get that.
So are we leaving that out then?
I promise leave it out because again, they're gonna have to follow code.
Okay, so then the next one was,
Are we going line by line?
or whatever, anybody's concern that we had said 2 weeks ago, if you had specific concerns that we wanted to discuss those specific ones, because if there was anything that wasn't a concern, then,
Yeah.
but right now I feel you're going more in this area just because it is part of the special exception process that you are asking to keep in, so of section 2.3R. That's why. So just, if you have a specific concern, by looking at what the ordinance reads now, would somebody just care to share your concern on something that has been a strike through presently, the way our ordinance reads?
On the special exception, if they could get the property value guarantee in it, would that ever happen? I
If-
think that would change a lot of people's mind just, or that's,
If,
some poor people was out here and worried about the property value guarantee, and now they want to throw it out the window. I think that's very.
Put it in somewhere else.
That,
Put it in somewhere else.
but whatever.
Property value guarantee.
But can we legally put it in the UDO? I thought,
We tried.
yeah.
We did.
And then I
well,
thought it
that
had to
it's a
get figured out.
considered, that they need to consider as a board. And you can't, unless I misunderstood not being an attorney, you can't put a condition or commitment on a permit for one permit, but not for other permits. So we need to put conditions on commitments when you get your swimming pool then, kind of thing. So,
Well, I was gonna put a big dairy in right next to my house, across the road a half mile. And I still wanted to live there, so I could have cared less. But I could see some of the people really being concerned about it. And over the whole project, they're just talking nickel and dimes. So I can't see why the solar panel company within a realistic district, and darn near needs to be wrote up by a lawyer, because what if we go in a depression, you know, there are just so many variables to it that it'd be hard to, well, how far do you go with property guarantees? 2 miles, 2 feet, 10 mile? I mean, it's just real hard to,
What was it before, Carla? Half mile?
I think Moss Creek was half and Mammoth was a mile, but
well, that's not very far. And you know, if you, I've drove that route different times, I don't think you're looking at over a dozen homes, are you? Have you drove it?
That area. I've driven through other solar.
People around Denham was I never heard anybody, Beaver or even Franklin, Rich Grove Township, most concerned about property.
Seems to be hard to guarantee value. What happens if half the world's population?
Well, that's what I
dies from COVID?
say.
17 next week. bad thing. I don't know, of course, I guess they're probably not really gonna care.
No.
Probably their powers, I don't think power the fire. The worst thing, you know, you just sit there. I like guarantee too, but how, like Mike says, how do you, inflation was 7.5% this year, but houses go up. Farm grounds are all time high, and I think houses are probably all time high. 2 years in.
Be 180 the other way. But, and I guess if we go through a depression and they had property guarantee and they didn't have any money to pay, it'd just be a chance for a lawyer to make more.
That's why they have appraisals.
Yeah.
Comparables from buy the solar and not buy the solar.
But if your appraisal, if you got your house appraised for $10,000 in 20 years, your house is worth, $100,000.
Right,
Are you going to split that with the developer?
yes, only like.
Kind of like 5 years running, Carla.
It was,
Like
okay,
5
so, Moss Creek is only non-participating properties that are adjoining, and then it's for 3 years. And the thing with an appraisal is, you can get an appraisal now, and then in 2 years from now, if I want to refi my house, I have to get another appraisal. So my appraisal I just got now is pointless for use in 2 years from now.
What do you think, Todd? You got property.
Well, I'm not really close to it, but again, that's already addressed. Property guarantee, it's already addressed.
Yeah, and the old stuff.
Yeah, we're not trying to
Right now.
change that. We're just discussing the special exception, but if it changes.
Right.
That's what exception, that's out.
I thought you said you wanted to keep it.
No, I'm just saying, if we vote yes right now, say we did, the property value guarantee out the window.
Correct.
We're just discussing the differences.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, so the range, miles and feet, whatever you want to call it, is not going to change. We need to keep that special exception. You're just
happy the way it is right now. I mean, the way it was.
Before the commissioners brought it to
Before
us?
commissioners ever brought it to you, are you 100% happy with it?
before they changed all this.
Yeah.
I was 90%, 95% happy.
Why don't we just vote? I would be, it's like, we're gonna say here all for 8 more meetings, and these people need to know. Then at least the solar company will know what they're playing with. They don't even, to me, it's just like, just vote no recommendation. That's just, if you're happy with the way
Well,
it was.
there are some changes like the fire emergency. I do like that change. There are a few. But
I mean, a lot of stuff was, like I said, it was National Electric Code, and Carlos gonna be doing stuff. Seems like, I don't know, this is not horticulture, so I think it's gonna have a green thumb.
But there is language in the ordinance that reads a third party will participate. And then you also have that 105% in our fee schedule. So if our office feels that it's something that we need additional assistance on, we have that opportunity to look to other parties for that. Yes. And there's also language, I think it's 7.15, maybe 7.18, that it does read that, again, with the third party will be paid for by the developer. Okay, friends, so still with this special exception staying in. So you have, stop me if I'm wrong, 2.3 R1E, you want estimated number of panels. You are accepting the removal of type, nameplate, maximum spatial, means of interconnecting, because that's actually in the recommendation of 7.14F. Potential equipment, manufacturers and models, we should discuss that. And 7. Let me, I'm so sorry, what?
That's referenced in 2.3 number 7 is, you covered that.
Okay, so under E, project description, you are stating the only thing is estimated number of panels. Sound accurate? Okay, so then I'm looking at our current ordinance right now. F is a strike through. Yes? Anyone? Comment? Okay, so strike through F. Okay, so now you're moving to 2.3 R2, accessory use structures. Actually, will you go to the recommended version? Page 57, 2.3 R. Are you satisfied with what had been recommended to you? And then you can actually add okay, so in the recommended version, 2.3 R, no. Okay, on the recommended copy, EAL 2.3 R3, applications for commercial SES. If you feel 3A, 1 through 12, and then B, C, and D, D being the emergency response plan. And then, since you had requested an estimated number of panels, then that could be added to A. And that could just be 13, then I guess if. So in the recommended copy, 2.3 R 3A 13 would be estimated number of panels. If you are satisfied with the recommendations in this version?
I've got something
Yes.
on that section, R3. I would like to see the verbiage from R2A put in somewhere before the site layout. Basically, the same thing you're doing in R2, include that in R3, because right now all you're saying is accessory use SES has to be in compliance. But we don't really say that.
So as a board, based on what Ray just shared, compliance with NEC, where it's 2.3R2A. That language could be, if you feel to add that to the application for commercial SES, then that could be E, to, R3E.
Well, just to keep it consistent, couldn't you keep that 2A as a 3A and then just move A to B? See,
Well, I guess
see what I'm saying?
that would be more of kind of a clerical thing, just as long as
Okay.
you as a board feel it would be in the best interest to add that language to 3 application for commercial SES. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Okay, so add 2.3R 2A language to 2.3R3 section. And then you did agree that estimated number of panels would be 13. Do you want that also in the accessory use? Anyone? Yes, 13, make that be 13, yes, number of, estimated number of panels, okay. Moving on all the recommendations, is there anything to adjust or add? So do you feel everything else in the recommended, you feel satisfied with? And then If no one has anything to add to that. Looking back at our current ordinance.
Satisfied with two?
So with those two adjustments, then everything that was recommended to you as a board, you feel satisfied with as it being part of the special exception application process? Okay.
So you're gonna have to go through and change all that, this is, versus the permit application.
Yep, so you actually have 3 changes, yes. So then. Yes.
Does this make sense that all the board members go through their packets, they gotta change your office next meeting?
No, so like what we've done in the past is when you've collectively decided on what you want to see adjusted, then we will, in our office, we will have, here's what was presented to you, here's what you want adjusted. And then that's what you can go back and forth and vote on. Like, for example, if you want, just for reference, the minutes from Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, here's here's originally what the ordinance at that time, what it read, here was a recommendation based on whatever, and then it made it a little easier so you can see side by side. This was, we couldn't.
I mean, for all of us said here, our 48 hours might be up.
Because you haven't set a date yet, so.
I guess the only thing I want to make sure of personally is property rights, road maintenance, drainage maintenance, and noise. I don't see much other guarantee of property, but that's not a killer for me. And if anybody else has anything, why don't they just tell you and drive us.
Okay, does everybody feel satisfied with the section 2? Okay, so then if we don't, does anybody have anything else beyond what you discussed on the 16th? For section 2 for the special exception process? Because I want to confirm the language based on what you said on the 16th. Tina and I have it written down, but just want to double check. We are on the recommended version, section 7. It's okay, 714A1, page 223. So panels they shall be constructed of commercially available equipment that conforms to applicable industry standards. As per NEC regulations at time of application. acceptable still? Because, okay, because then the same language reads on page 224F, electrical components, 714F1. Was that at application? So F1 was international codes and standards. At date of application.
Yeah, that's what we had down.
I had signing and I had it scribbled out and so I just want to make sure.
We had that E, we had to change the 90 to 112 on mine. Then we,
Yes, yep. 714E, keep 112. So adjust from the recommendation. So then, let me go back, I'm sorry, 714D2. So you're just moving up one to the danger signs. Every 600 feet along the fencing or as industry standards, or whichever is more stringent.
or tell them where to put signs.
I think
Or
it's under-
Or as industry standards. So leave the language, every 600 feet along the fencing or as industry standards. That's it.
Take 600 feet out, 'cause standards, liability.
What if it? Get rid of it.
Okay. So you're saying for D2, danger and high voltage signs shall be posted at the height and distance as dictated by industry standards.
Maybe they all put up purple. No trespass.
Purple does?
Yeah. Nation.
That's not. And I mean, then if you want to put that in the ordinance.
That's already law. We don't have to.
Right. Okay. Okay, so 714H. 4. Change it to say pesticide in a licensed pesticide applicator. Okay. And then 715A1. Keep to what is presently in the Pulaski County UDO. So adjust the recommendation of 60 back to what's in the ordinance of 50. Okay, so beyond what we just said, the special exception process, three in section 2.3 are to state special exception application, number of panels, and then the NEC language. And then add the language regarding date of application, NEC regulations, industry standards, keep wind at 112, noise decibels 50, and a pesticide applicator, not a chemical applicator. Anything else for discussion?
If there's no further discussion, do we want to choose a date for the next public hearing? Gotta have a minimum of 48 hours from advertisement.
Make a consensus on the tree issue. The visual screening, what the commissioners submitted versus what they later said they wanted. I may have just missed where the consensus.
I thought everybody was okay with that because it really wasn't much different than what's in the ordinance now.
What they submitted in writing versus what they came back at the last minute, so they wanted to do with the roads. Are we keeping, I guess this is a consensus to keep the road frontage screening requirements.
So we agreed on the half mile. Occupied house on it.
What I'm getting at, if you recall, what's in writing isn't what Carla relayed the commissioners had decided they actually wanted at on the 16th.
See, this is wrong, I was confused.
That's, I wasn't, so,
What
What they
number,
say they want.
what number, Nick?
They're looking.
it's
714B, page 223 in the recommendation.
So the written
224 in the-
recommendation keeps the requirement of visual screening at any road frontage.
For half a mile.
As I had put in an email, before the current ordinance, the version gave Carla's office some discretion on that, depending on traffic patterns and that sort of thing, that we removed. The commissioners followed up the written proposal by conveying to Carla that they actually wanted to get rid of the requirement along the road frontage entirely, unless there's a house across the road. So if there's no house within that half-mile distance across the road from it, then the road would not have to have the screening, which is a question of impact on traffic, that sort of thing. I think that's what Tyler was asking earlier, and I'm not sure if he ever got an answer where if we were going to keep the written request or agree to the later conveyed request.
Want to keep the written?
Half mile, right? House.
So screening half a mile for that, like that example I had. So if you have a house if this is a half a mile county block and there's a residential structure here, you're screening that structure as well as.
Like you
Because
said-
this is a road.
like you said, the side, around the home, would have it along the road farther down, wouldn't. That's just what you decided.
Then I'm misunderstanding that you all right now are saying a half a mile screening.
You guys want a half a mile from the home?
Quarter mile each way. Be realistic anymore on that one.
So screen residential structures within a half a mile, but road frontage a quarter of a mile.
That's just a person.
And then they can waive that, yeah.
Just give them a mile. They go around their house this way or this way, or, I mean, this guy might want to go all that way, because I never go that way. I own 8 trees. You know, if I was going, I'd never go that way when I leave my house.
So.
So do you feel to screen roads half a mile?
Well, where's the half mile start?
From the property line of the non-participating,
Does it go a
Residential
quarter mile
structure.
to the, left and a quarter mile, right?
if they're in the
Or
middle,
does it go a half mile to the
if they'd be in the
left
middle.
or a half mile to the
We're
right?
thinking the road screening. It's literally just the road that the parcel abuts, you know, I don't think it's half mile, so if the project is on County Road 100 and it's on 150, I think all that we're asking is whether you want to require it on the roads, as is currently the ordinance and was originally kept in the commissioner's recommendation. Strip the requirement from roads as the commissioners later conveyed to Carla, or something else. Like go back to the previous ordinance where we require it, but Carla can use her common sense and say, there are 7 cars a week on this road, we don't need to require this.
I'd like,
Thought.
I think it's just up to the property owner, developer, and no more than a quarter mile each way. Which would be a half mile. I mean, you can't, you go a half mile from the center of the property, it's a mile then.
I think we should just leave what the commissioner says in print. There you go.
Yeah, but it'd be a quarter mile each way.
Mike, I'm not sure what you mean by either way.
It-
If a house is within a quarter mile of a solar panel, it gets, the measurement's based on where the panel property is, not where the house is. So it's not like a quarter mile from a solar panel on this side and a quarter on that side. If your house is within a half mile of it, you get it.
I'm not saying the
Or how-
trees are gonna go a half mile.
Or how far?
We need, if your house is a half mile or closer, then unless you waive it, they have to put trees so you don't see the panel from your house. Or technically the property. But that's what's in the ordinance right now. That's what the recommended changes still says, that whether it's on one side, both sides, 3 sides, 4 sides, any direction where there is a solar panel within a half mile of your property, you are entitled to visual screening unless you waive it.
7.14B3 reads in the recommendation, the planting of landscaping along the perimeter of the CSES shall be required on the outside of the perimeter fencing along road frontage and facing all habitable dwellings fit for human occupation on non-participating properties within a half a mile of a CSES. So all screening, half a mile.
I must not understood. I thought, well, you just gotta do screen off the front porch so they can't see it?
You can recommend that.
Well, I think a quarter mile each way so they can't see it. Any.
So language as was submitted to you in the recommendation? So no strike throughs on whatever was, okay. Those, or, okay. Anything else?
Are you all wedded to keep the special exception versus by right in A2?
Say that again.
board with keeping special exception rather than the alternative I suggested, making a zoning change rather than a BZA hearing.
Well, the zoning change, we can't do conditions, right?
That, I mean, yeah, the benefit to it from the county's perspective is that while legal challenges are still possible, they're a higher burden of proof. That might make it easier for the county to get through it. The downside is, yes, condition commitments are not there, so anything that isn't codified in the ordinance as is.
Right.
It's a question, I guess, your job is obviously not to say, I'm for solar, I'm against solar. It's, if it is gonna happen, what are the best circumstances?
Right.
I mean, I think might be worth the rezoning, but that doesn't seem to be where all of you stand.
So you just go make one A2?
Means that you would spend 5 hours here listening to public comment instead of the BZA.
But you can't put property conditions guaranteed.
That's right.
You have to do yes or no. That'd be hard. Yes or no.
I mean, you'd still have to judge based on the criteria that you have for any zoning ordinance change. You just could say, in addition to saying, yes, we meet this, we're going to grant it only if you promise to do X, Y, and Z. It would probably streamline the processes, but it would take out flexibility. Hey, Todd, on an entirely unrelated note, see me after the meeting or something. I just thought of something about you.
Does anybody have input? Favor with leaving it? Were there any other comments, issues, concerns? Oh, meeting date. But you got any insight?
Next Monday. Here we're-
No, we got a commissioner meeting.
Hmm?
Tuesday be fine.
Just for the Friday.
Friday?
April Fool's
April Fool's Day, really?
That'd be the good day.
I'm available.
April Fool's Day.
April first, or that's Saturday, ain't it?
No, it's
No,
Friday.
no, it's Friday.
But it's at
Friday.
night. Can we have it during the day?
No,
No, I have to work.
some of us have to.
Nobody wants to have on Friday night. Thursday night.
How about this coming Thursday night?
I can't.
Vice President, you run the meeting?
Oh, we
Pick a
could have
couple
it-
dates and then you guys just vote on what date works best for the majority and
But it's Wednesday night, that,
Oh.
You'd have to go back to the office and you'd have to schedule it for like 10 o'clock Wednesday night at this point.
Next Wednesday would work. The 6th. Or next Thursday, the 7th.
How about next Tuesday?
When's our APC or CDC?
Week after because of the summit.
Okay.
if it's the
Tuesday won't
7th,
work for me.
if it's the 7th, it has
I
to
can
be
be absent.
elsewhere. They're not, this is not available for us until after 7 o'clock. Please don't schedule it after 7 o'clock.
How about Saturday afternoon?
how about Sunday? We had council meeting on Sunday. I protested.
You got a council meeting on Sunday?
We did one time. We had a council meeting. I protested. I just.
We say
had
that
a
the
meeting.
Phoenix City.
I gotta go to church
Friday.
on Sunday.
So I told them.
I can't.
Wednesday's as soon as they like to come. I'm gonna take my garbage.
Next
out
week?
there. Oh my God.
Thursday? This Thursday, the 31st?
That day. You guys know there's a solar education meeting.
During
It's
the
like,
day.
Riley, you're stepping
Yeah.
it up.
That day though.
During the day.
Anybody got invited?
Well, you can call in.
So this building is usually unavailable Thursday evenings. So we would need to find another location.
This Thursday, we can't be
Most
here.
Thursdays, this right here has been booked at 6 o'clock. Do you,
Office is open. Let me go grab the calendar and see if it's open.
thank you.
What's it booked for?
And none of my business that it's booked.
We can, to meet at my house. I got a big house.
Okay.
Gonna let the
I know how to
public in.
microwave hot dogs. Well, I do. It ain't hard. Put them in, push them in it. They're done.
Thursday, the 4-H Dog Club is here until 7 o'clock.
Until 7. It's gotta be open to the public, right?
Tuesday, the 5th, extension has something here at 5:30, doesn't say how late. Dog Club is here every Thursday for us.
Do it Friday night,
Which Friday?
this Friday.
Nothing on the schedule.
Friday.
We did get like at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, so it shouldn't take long. 6.
6 work for everybody?
Friday?
This Friday night at 6? I'll have to call Bull. Bullard,
Go see, tell him,
Friday night.
tell him I said hi.
This Wednesday? Fine.
So you can eat fish and he never charges.
What have we decided?
Friday
April
night.
Fools, 6 PM?
Well, you won't?
That's fine. I mean, I agree with everything that's been presented.
Okay, looks like our next meeting will be Friday night, April 1st at 6 PM.
I move.
Which will be the continuation of the March 16th, 2022 meeting.
Do we want, before we vote on that, should we be recessing instead of adjourning this meeting? I know when we had commissioners meetings, sometimes when they drug on like this, we go into recess.
So we're continuing
No,
on
he's
from-
being sarcastic.
No,
Okay.
I'm not. We never adjourned.
Is there any other business? Then go ahead. Not open. Okay, I'm gonna open to public comment, except there is no public comment on old business. Because there was already public comment from March 16th, 2022, so it's closed to public comment. I guess the public comment would revolve around the Nelson. Or our meeting minutes. For the pledge. Yes, sir. That would still be closed due to the fact that it's a continuation from the 16th meeting and public comment was open on that meeting. So no. Any other public comment? And I go ahead and close public comment and, anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I did.
Okay, well, We had some other stuff to cover. Anybody second it?
I'll second it.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye.